Hi everyone, my name is Chelsea. Welcome to my kitchen. I'm really happy to have you here with me today where we are going to do some more bulk cooking. Over the last 3 weeks here on my channel, I've been sharing with you some of my prep days for the week that I do on the weekend. It has just gotten increasingly busy around here. We're spending a ton of time running people around to activities and things like that. So I'm trying to get some of the cooking done on the weekend when it's a little bit slower, so that it's just not quite as haywire during the week. And so far I have done some snacks, breakfasts, and lunches, I think. And today we're gonna focus on some dinner recipes. The first one we're going to do evokes memories of my maternal grandmother. This recipe is actually her recipe. So it's her recipe for shepherd's pie, but it has a little bit of a twist, and it is a little bit more of an elegant version of a shepherd's pie than you might be used to. One of the things I will say about shepherd's pie before we get into it is our shepherd's pie is made with ground beef. Traditionally, shepherd's pie was made with ground lamb, and cottage pie was what was referred to when a shepherd's pie type thing was made with ground beef, but we have always called it shepherd's pie in our family, and I think most people in North America also refer to a pie like this made with ground beef as shepherd's pie. So I just wanted to clarify that for my European friends who are going to watch me make this and want to correct the fact that it should be made with lamb. And indeed, if it was a traditional shepherd's pie, it should be, but we're going to do it with ground beef. So the comment that my grandmother made for this recipe, I got this recipe from my aunt, was a wonderful company casserole served with crisp salad and fruit for dessert. And whenever I read that, I hear my grandmother's voice in my head. She was very well spoken, very articulate, and she enunciated everything very well. And one of the reasons for that was because she was a performer all the way from childhood all the way up to her late teens. She did all different kinds of dance. She was a ballerina, she tap danced, she did lots of plays, and she was also a singer. And in fact, in her teens, I think she was supposed to go over to England, which is where her family was from, and join an opera school there, but life happened and she didn't end up doing that. And so anyways, when I cook this recipe, it really makes me think of her. And one of my most cherished possessions is something that my mom gave me a couple years ago for Christmas. And it is a sketchbook that my great-grandmother did of all of the costumes that my grandmother wore during her performances from the time she was just a little thing. So I just wanted to show that to you because I just love it so much. So this was given to my grandmother, whose name was Pamela. And then it was given to me, so it's inscribed, which I just love. So this first one here, her character was, or it was a recital called Black-Eyed Susan, and this was Pam's first toe dance, age 5. So she was actually on point at the age of 5. Can you see that? Isn't that just fantastic? So this is 1937 was when she drew this picture. So each one is a different drawing of my grandmother, drawn by my great-grandmother, of all of her costumes. And a lot of these costumes my great-grandmother actually made as well. So this is just such a cherished possession of mine. And then there are a couple of newspaper clippings about my grandmother and her performances. And I just love this so much. This is something that I will cherish forever. So that is the first recipe that we're going to get into. Right now, I am just frying some ground beef over there, and that is for 2 of the recipes. So that is going to be for the sauce that we're going to make for the shepherd's pie, and also for the beef stroganoff. So we're going to make a beef stroganoff as well, and we're going to do it 2 different ways, one with beef tenderloin and one with ground beef. Ground beef is just a cheaper way to make this same recipe, so I wanted to show you both versions. And then we're also going to make a pulled pork with a homemade barbecue sauce as well. And then I think we're going to make a fancy salad to go with one of these meals. I'm not sure which one yet, probably whichever one I decide to eat for tomorrow. So we'll get to that in a few minutes. So let's get going with finishing up chopping our potatoes. So I have some of the potatoes over here. So these are going to be for the mashed potatoes for the top of our shepherd's pie. So we're just going to boil these up here and mash them. We'll add a little bit of cream and a little bit of butter, a little bit of salt and pepper. Just a simple mashed potato. I'm going to be doubling this recipe, but I will give you all of the measurements and everything that you need for the base batch of it, but we'll also put it over on my blog for you. So probably by Friday, it'll be over on the blog. So let's pop this over on the stove here. Like I said, just the ground beef and the potatoes over there are getting ready to go. And in the meantime, while those are cooking, we're gonna put together our barbecue sauce for our pulled pork. So over in my slow cooker over there, I have a pork roast that I put in last night. And I just put it on low overnight so that it would be cooked by morning, and I could shred it and just add the sauce and the onions to it, and it would be ready to go. So that's over there. I'll show you that in a couple of minutes. But in the meantime, let's make this sauce. My barbecue sauce recipe does not have measurements, so I'm sharing this with you more as an inspiration, but I'll give you kind of approximately what I'm adding here. So I'm gonna add 2 cups of ketchup, and you could use tomato paste. If you wanted, you might just need to add a little bit more sugar to it to sweeten it up, because ketchup does have a lot of sugar in it. We're gonna add a good sized tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce, a splash of apple cider vinegar, a splash of white vinegar. So around, I'd say a tablespoon is probably what I'm adding in there. We're gonna add a solid teaspoon of garlic powder, a little bit of onion powder. I'm gonna add some onion to this as well, so we won't add too much, about a half a teaspoon or so. A good teaspoon of chili powder, and some smoked paprika. If you don't have smoked paprika, use sweet paprika, but smoked paprika gives it that nice smoky flavor, so we wanna add a nice teaspoon of that as well. Just a couple of shakes of black pepper, and don't add any salt at this point. Give it a taste first and then decide whether it needs salt. And we're gonna add a handful or about probably half a cup or so of brown sugar. So then all we're gonna do here is take an onion, and I have a red onion, so I'm using a red onion. If I had like a white sweet onion, I would be using that instead. And we're just gonna chop this up nice and fine. So there's an alternative for this. You could cut your onions into slices like this and then fry it up and add it into your pork and your sauce mixture after, and that's kind of nice too. But since I only have this one little onion right now, I am going to just do it this way. Just dice it up fine and add that right to our sauce. And then we're gonna cook this until it gets nice and thick. And we're gonna add this right into our sauce here. You could add some minced garlic in here as well, that would be nice. And over to the stove. So we have our pork roast here, and I'm just gonna take the strings off, and I'm gonna cut off all the extra fat that didn't cook off from the slow cooker. And I'm gonna take the fat, all the extra fat that's in here, and pour that out. I'll leave all the rest of the little bits that are in the bottom of there, because that's just gonna flavor the whole thing a little bit. So basically, because this cooked all night long, as you can see, it's just shredding beautifully. So I'm just gonna give it a chop up here, just a rough chop, and then I'm gonna put it back in the slow cooker crock. And just, there's really not a lot of fat on here that I need to remove, which is nice. I just find this is just easier to do than to try to shred it in the crock pot. Even if it's cooked all night like this one, it still could use a little bit of a chop. Plus it definitely goes further when you chop it up nice and fine. So we have that all chopped, just a little bit more across this way. And then back into our crock pot it goes. At this point, you could absolutely add some chopped onions, chopped garlic. I would suggest caramelizing them first before adding them to that. I do not have any mustard powder right now, but Dan is actually on his way home from the grocery store. We had our grandson over last night and he was dropping him off at home and offered to grab me some of the groceries that I needed that I didn't have for these recipes. So he's going to be bringing back the mustard powder, and I'll add probably a good teaspoon of mustard powder to my barbecue sauce, but you could also add just yellow mustard or even a Dijon mustard if you want. I definitely recommend adding mustard unless you really hate mustard, just because it deepens the flavor of the barbecue sauce a little bit. So here's what our barbecue sauce is looking like. So I'm waiting for those onions to cook so they're nice and soft, and for the sauce to darken a little bit and thicken up, and then we'll add it into our crock pot. If you don't want to pre-cook your barbecue sauce like this, you could actually just put it right in with your meat, or even add store-bought barbecue sauce to this, and then you could put it back in the crock pot and let it cook on low for an hour or two just to let the flavors melt, and that would work perfectly fine as well. Okay, our barbecue sauce is ready, so we're going to add that right to the crock, and we're going to mix this in. The amount of barbecue sauce that you use in your pulled pork is entirely up to you. I prefer it so that it is more like this. You can see that how much is in there, so that you can taste the meat. I don't want to be overwhelmed with the flavor of barbecue sauce, but some people like it super saucy, and oftentimes I'll have a little bit of extra sauce on the table so that the saucy folks can add the extra sauce to theirs. But this is looking pretty good to me. So I just have to make sure I remember to add the mustard powder to it when Dan gets home. So my plan with this is I am just going to let it cool off over there, and then I will put it in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer. And then when I want to use it, I'll take it out the night before, throw it in my crock pot, and then turn it on low in the morning, and it'll be nice and heated through and thawed by the time we want to eat it at either lunch or dinner. So that's the plan for that one. So that one is now done. Okay, I'm just going to take a quick peek on these potatoes over here and see if they are ready. Just about fork tender, but not quite. So let's get some of the things prepared for our tomato sauce that we're going to put on top of our shepherd's pie. So we're going to need some olives, and I know this sounds like a weird ingredient. We're also going to use capers as well. So little unusual, but trust me, it's good. So these are garlic stuffed, and my grandma's recipe calls for just regular pimento stuffed olives, but garlic stuffed olives are not going to hurt. Garlic stuffed olives make everything better in my opinion. So we need 12 of these, but because these are really big olives, I'm going to do just 6 of them. And we're just going to chop these up nice and fine. That is not the right knife for this job. That is also not the right knife. Good grief. There, that's better. So we're just going to chop these up nice and fine, and then we'll set them aside for when we need them. That is about all I can do until Dan gets back. So I'll be back with you when he gets back, and we'll finish putting these recipes together. Okay friends, Dan is back, and he has brought all of the ingredients that I needed to finish these recipes. However, he has informed me that I must go stand outside in the sun and soak up a good 15 minutes of sun, because he said it feels like spring out there and it's absolutely beautiful. So I thought we would just take a quick break from the kitchen, head down and soak up a few minutes of sun. I'll show you what he's up to outside, and then we'll come back and finish these recipes, which I am very excited about because dinner tonight's going to be delicious. One of the downsides of this property is that this is east, so we get beautiful sunrises this time of year, and we get nice early sun on the front of our house. This is west, where the sun sets, and there's a mountain there. So when the sun is set there, as you can see, our yard is shady. However, so anyone that's on that side of the meadow ends up getting at least 30 minutes to 45 minutes more daylight than we do in the wintertime, which with our already short days is kind of unfortunate. That being said, it is a big benefit in the summertime because it can get really, really hot here in the summertime, and the sun goes down and starts to cool us off in the evening early, and it cools it off to make it really comfortable for sleeping at night in the summer. So we only complain this time of year about being at the base of a mountain like this. Okay, let me show you a couple of the projects that we have going on out here, and we want to start bringing you along with us for some of these projects. So this is our shop, and Dan is doing a massive reorganization in here, and he is painting the walls so they're gray halfway up, organizing all the tools and everything in under here. And then over here by the wood stove, he is putting this metal all the way around the stove, and I think that looks really nice. And then he put some on the base of where the wood stove sits. Hey, cutie pie. Hey, sweetheart. This is Nala, and this is her little heated cat bed that she has in here. Hey, sweet girl. You're such a cutie. This is a huge project, and Dan has been working on it out here, getting everything organized. In fact, when we first moved in here, the people that we had purchased the property from had been here for 30 years before us, and the shop was just filled with stuff. And Dan actually said, just leave whatever you don't want to take, because he knew he could use a lot of it. And he is just now getting through the last of all of the stuff that was left in here. So big project, but it's going to look pretty nice when it's all done. Are you going to come out? Hey, cutie, you going to come get some sunshine with us? My goodness, my husband knows me well, sending me outside, because it is just so beautiful, and I immediately feel just so much better. I have recovered 95%, I would say, from the pneumonia that I had, but I still get pretty worn down if I do too much in the day, and my breathing isn't back 100% like my lung capacity. So getting outside and getting a little bit of vitamin D and some sunshine is probably exactly what I need. Just makes me smile, all my animals. For those of you that are new here, and I know we have lots of new faces since we've last been out to the animals together, I'll introduce you to some of them. Hi, honey. This is Archie. He is just a sweetheart, and he loves scratches, as you can see. You are looking so good. So Archie was a little bit skinny when we first got him. He's still a little bit skinnier than I'd like to see, but he's put on a lot of weight, which is great. And my girls just love him. This over here is Thistle, and she has given me 2 heifer calves in the last 2 years. Hopefully another one next summer. Hey, girl? She is a wonderful, wonderful milk cow. Just love, aren't you, girl? And this is Milkweed, and she is also a gem. This is our bull, Oreo, over here. This is Freya, and she's just all full of attitude, aren't ya? As most ponies are. Good thing she's such a cutie. And then there's Honey over there. Oh, that sun, oh my gosh. Just gorgeous. It's almost too bright out here with the snow. Okay, so if you will remember back when we first started sharing videos here on YouTube, I think one of the first videos that Dan and I ever did together, we were standing right down here. It was very different than it is now. We had a huge cattle sorting arena that was all here that we've taken down, and that's actually what we used to build a lot of the shelving in our house, at the pantry and all of that. Anyway, we were looking at this area, and we called it the hummock field. And hummocks are these big bumps of like grass roots and stumps and things like that, that usually will form in kind of a boggier area of land. And we were trying to figure out how on earth we were going to convert that into hayfield. The people that we bought the property from informed us that back in the early 80s or mid 80s, the University of BC actually came out here, and they tried to find ways that they could convert this boggy kind of land into hay. And they actually ended up sinking a bulldozer in this boggy area that I'm about to show you. So Dan has been racking his brain for years now of how he could actually go about doing this. So what we did in the summer to start to kind of drain this area a little bit is we put a big ditch all the way along here. You can see it goes way over there, and that filled with water right away and drained out a bunch of the water and held it in that ditch area, which is just fantastic. And then we had a neighbor over who is a rancher, longtime rancher, who told us that he thought this was the perfect time to get out here because the ground is frozen. And so Dan decided to bring the bulldozer out here and just give it a try and see what he could do. And he has managed to clear this whole entire area that I am standing in here, all the way over here. He's done about 4 acres or so, he thinks. And he has another 15 probably to do way over on that side of the meadow, but it's working. That's the exciting thing, is it is actually working to get rid of. Let me show you what the hummocks look like. Okay, over here. So this kind of pile here, this is like hard roots, grass kind of pile. So this entire field was covered with just thousands of them. So this is just absolutely so exciting for us. Our goal is to be able to run around 20 cattle on our property. And currently we just don't have the amount of hay land that would be required to do that. We would have to bring hay in, and we really don't want to have to do that. So making this into hay, Dan thinks he can probably get 50 round bales off this. And then we have the other hay area that we hay up here. And then up over here is all the land that we cleared this summer. We did a ton of land clearing up on the mountain. So anywhere that was flat, we cleared those areas. And we also have found a spring up on that hill. So we are going to be able to have probably double the amount of hay land, if not more, than we currently have, which is so exciting, so exciting. And we're going to be leaving this area that's in here, that's all swamp. We're going to leave that as kind of a wetland area there. We're probably going to build a pond right in over here, and so that we can have a pond. We actually don't have a pond on our property, so that will create another wetland area for migrating birds and things like that. And then this area we'll be able to have as our hay, which is just so exciting. We're going to introduce, probably in the next couple of weeks, a video every week that focuses on these projects that we're doing on our property, because we really want to share that with you. It's a huge part of what we do here, and obviously a big part of what Dan does here on the property. So we want to start sharing a little bit more of that side of what we do. When we first started our channel, we actually were more focused on the homestead aspect of what we do out here. And then over the years, it sort of evolved into more gardening and cooking. Oh, it's bright, which is obviously a huge part of what we do here. And we're going to continue to share that in a lot of our content, the majority of our content. But we thought we would kind of start doing this a little bit more and see what you guys think. So hopefully you enjoy it. And now I have a ton of cooking yet to do today. So let's head back up to the kitchen. I feel so much better now after going outside. Oh, it's so nice. Let's get this recipe together. So this is the shepherd's pie with tomato sauce. If you have the Little Mountain Ranch Family Cookbook, it is on page 59. And we're gonna need our mashed potatoes, which I already have mashed up over on the stove there. 2 cups of ground beef. So remember, I'm doubling this recipe, but I'm giving you the measurements for the single batch. 4 tablespoons of parsley, 1/4 cup of celery finely chopped, which I have here. Mushrooms. We need peas and carrots, frozen peas and carrots, which I have done in the freezer and I'll run and grab in a sec. A teaspoon of salt, pepper, 1/4 cup of cream, 2 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, and 2 tablespoons of butter. So I already have my 2 tablespoons of butter over in my fry pan over there. Okay, so we have our parsley and our celery here. We're gonna go throw those over on our fry pan. Okay, so we're gonna start with our tomato sauce over there, and we're gonna need our 2 tablespoons of onion chopped up. So we do have some white onions now. I am gonna grab my goggles for this because these are gonna burn my eyes. You guys have shared every trick in the book for not having your eyes burn, which I really appreciate. But the only thing that I have found that actually works for me is wearing actual eye protection because I am just super sensitive to hot onions. For the tomato sauce, you're gonna need 2 tablespoons of butter, 2 tablespoons of onions finely chopped, a tablespoon of flour, a 16-ounce can of tomatoes. And then you're gonna need 6 olives, sliced thin or diced like I have them here, a half a cup of green pepper finely chopped, a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, an 1/8 teaspoon of basil, a dash of cayenne pepper, a teaspoon of granulated sugar, and 1 teaspoon of capers. Drain. So we're gonna get these chopped up. Then we're gonna just heat the butter in the saucepan, add the onions and cook until just tender. Stir in the flour, add tomatoes, stirring until well blended. Then we'll add the olives, the green peppers, the salt, the cayenne, the sugar, and the capers, and stir it for 8 to 10 minutes until it is nice and thickened. So we only need around 4 tablespoons of the onion. Add our diced tomato. 1 cup of peppers. So these were peppers that I diced up and froze in the summer. 1/4 teaspoon of basil. Teaspoon of sugar. A little bit of black pepper. Salt, dash of cayenne pepper, capers, and then we'll let this cook for 10 minutes. Oh, that smells so good. I know it's a very odd combination of things, but it just tastes delicious. Now we have our ground beef here. So we're gonna put in our celery, our mushrooms, and I'm just gonna drain these. Leaving a little bit of the juice in there. We have our parsley. We're just gonna put this back over on the stove and get this heated up. We're going to add some frozen mixed veggies. So the recipe calls for peas and carrots, but I have peas, carrots, corn, and green beans, so I'm gonna throw that in there. We're going to add 2/3 a cup of cream to our meat mixture, which we are going to skim off of our milk here. Okay, we're gonna add this into our meat. Okay, we're gonna top this off once we put it all together with a little bit of Parmesan. So I'm gonna get that. Whoa, it's very hard plastic. Get that all grated up now. And these onions I'll save for our next recipe. Even if it doesn't call for them, we'll add them, because why not? That should do it. So now I'm just going to tidy up this big mess that I have made here, and then we'll put together our shepherd's pie. We're going to take some of our mashed potato and we are going to put it in a thin layer along the bottom of a casserole dish. And a fork works best for this. It's just easy to get it nice and smooth. Then we're going to take our filling here and we're going to cover our layer of mashed potatoes here. Okay, and then we're going to cover this with the rest of our mashed potatoes here. Okay, now we'll sprinkle with some Parmesan, pepper, I think that we are actually gonna have this for dinner tonight because it just smells so good. But what you could do is take this, cover it, and pop it in the freezer, and then take it out the night before you want to cook it so it has a chance to thaw it in the fridge, and then bake it up when you want to make it. So we're going to bake this until it's golden brown on top, and then we will top it with our sauce and give it a try. Okay, for our beef stroganoff, I was going to do one with beef tenderloin and one with ground beef, but I forgot to put the tenderloin on Dan's list for the grocery store, so we're just gonna do it with the ground beef, which is how it is in my recipe book. This one is on page 79 of the recipe book. And what you'll need for this, and I am going to be doubling this as well, but 1.5 pounds of ground beef, a large onion, 3 cloves of garlic, 12 large mushrooms sliced, or a couple cans of mushrooms, which is what I'm gonna be using today. 2 tablespoons of butter, a tablespoon of better than bouillon or whatever kind of beef flavoring or stock that you want to use, 1.5 cups of water, a cup of sour cream, salt and pepper to taste, thyme, parsley, a tablespoon of cornstarch, and 2 tablespoons of cold water just for mixing your cornstarch in. And basically you just want to ground, you don't want to grind your ground beef unless you want to grind your own ground beef. You want to fry up your ground beef so it is nice and brown, which I have already done, and I have mine in a pot. So if you want to follow the instructions exactly, I'm just going to actually throw everything in a pot and just let it cook for a little bit of time on the stove, because I want to move on to my next recipe that I'm going to do, which is a delicious looking salad that I was inspired by something I saw on Instagram to make. So you can do it the way that I'm going to do it, which is throwing everything in a pot, or you can follow the steps, the instructions in the cookbook. If you follow the instructions in the cookbook, it'll take a little bit more time, but it will make the flavor a little bit more rich. So for instance, you want to cook your mushrooms, not using canned mushrooms, but fresh mushrooms in butter until they start to crisp a little bit, and that gives it a richer, deeper flavor. But like I said, I'm just gonna throw it all in a pot because I really want to make the salad that I'm about to make. So into our pot, I already have our ground beef here. And I'm just going to drain off these mushrooms and add 2 cans of mushrooms. This is one of the nice things about quite a few of the recipes in my cookbook, is you can get fancy with them if you like, or you can make them, throw them together really quickly and just let them cook slowly on the stove or in the oven, which is nice time saving. So we have our mushrooms in here. We're going to add our better than bouillon and our water, which is already mixed together here. Gonna add some parsley. We're gonna add a couple teaspoons of thyme. Frying up your onion and your garlic, of course, is also going to give you a deeper, richer flavor. But like I said, I'm looking to save time. So I'm just gonna throw that in there. Do have to chop some garlic up though. Good grief, I have made quite the mess in my kitchen today. That's what happens when you do bulk cooking though, but it's worth it because this mess is not going to be mess that I'm going to have to clean up during the week. So that's kind of nice. This little tiny bit of Parmesan here, I'm just going to throw that in there too. Why not? Okay, these are gigantic cloves of garlic. Look at the size of that. So I think we'll only do 2. Okay, garlic in. So we're gonna get this cooking over on the stove. This recipe that I am going to make for the salad is inspired by Tegan Gerard of Half Baked Harvest. She shared this on Instagram the other day and I thought it looked absolutely scrumptious. So I don't have the exact recipe for it. I'm just going to use what I saw as inspiration for what I'm gonna try to make. So excited because my gingerbread, so this is a gingerbread tea towel, which are my favorite tea towels of all time. So gingerbread and I are collaborating on a Little Mountain Ranch inspired tea towel. This is basically a dream come true for me because I have loved these tea towels since they were sent to me. They were actually sent to me by a subscriber. So if you are still watching my channel, thank you so much. A couple of years ago, and I just love them so much. And so we started talking, I think back in September or so, about making a little mountain ranch one, and we're actually in the process of designing it right now, which is so exciting. So now for this salad, we need some pomegranate, which is not something that I use a ton in my cooking. So all we're gonna do is take all of the little pomegranate, I guess they're actually the seeds, the pomegranate seeds, out of here, and we're gonna use these for our salad. I am gonna have to watch the video that she shared again, just for the ingredients that I need for the dressing, because it's a tahini sesame seed dressing. So tahini is sesame butter, basically sesame seed butter. So that's the base for it. And then there's some lemon, salt and pepper, olive oil, just some basic dressing ingredients. But that part's kind of important, so I want to make sure that at least I have everything that I need for it. I feel like that's probably enough of the seeds for the salad. So this is a kale salad, and I normally only eat kale in the summer when it's fresh, but I was really craving kale and this salad just looked so delicious. So I decided that we would buy some kale. So I'm just gonna take this over, give it a wash. So what she says to do is we wanna take our sweet potatoes here that are already roasted, or starting to be roasted anyway. They're nice and soft. And we're gonna mash these down and add some seasonings to them. She doesn't say what kind of seasonings. So I'm gonna go with garlic powder. I'm gonna go with a little bit of smoked paprika. And then she says to drizzle it with honey and pop it back in the oven. So when it comes to recipes, modern recipe cookbooks, I usually like to use older cookbooks just because it's more the way that I cook. But Half Baked Harvest, I own 2 of her cookbooks, are just, her recipes are so, they kind of have an old school vibe to them, but really hearty, kind of stick to your bones kinds of recipes. So anything I've tried of hers, I've absolutely loved. So there we go. So I have them kind of mashed down a little bit. We're gonna add a little smoked paprika to these. We're gonna add some garlic powder. And one thing that Tegan does that I don't really do is she really seasons her food. And I would say if Dan had a complaint about my cooking, he doesn't complain about my cooking, but if he did, it would probably be that my food was not quite saucy enough or sweetened or like seasoned enough, just not strong enough flavor. And it's probably because I have a really sensitive palate to flavors. So I just naturally don't really overly season my food. But whenever I follow Tegan's way of cooking, have to admit, it tastes pretty good. So we're gonna pop these back in the oven and roast those up for a few more minutes. The beef stroganoff over on the stove smells so good, so good. So I have a nice big bowl here that I'm going to put our kale into. I wanted a really big bowl because I need to kind of massage the dressing into the kale a little bit. That's one of the things about a kale salad, is massaging the dressing in and then letting it sit for a little bit kind of softens the leaves up and also just makes flavor a little better. Oh, fresh veg like this, or I mean, this isn't really fresh, but you know what I mean, just reminds me of summer so much. I'm so excited about my garden this year. I've got big plans for it. Lots of flowers and amongst all the vegetables, of course. I don't know if I shared this with you last time, but I'm gonna be doing a lot of poppies this year. I just love poppies, and it's not something I've really focused on in my garden. In years past, I always plant poppies, but I'm gonna plant a lot of poppies this year. So all of this, and then we'll get to putting together the dressing. So I'm going to be serving the beef stroganoff over egg noodles, but I'm just cooking up the beef stroganoff part of it, and then I'll freeze that and I'll use that later on in the week. Then I can just cook up the noodles and dinner will be done, and I'll also probably serve that with some veggies on the side. Okay, so this is going to be absolutely scrumptious. So we're gonna have this with the shepherd's pie for dinner tonight, and then I'm sure there's gonna be enough left over to have for lunch tomorrow too. And honestly, for me, just this salad would probably be enough because it has the sweet potatoes in it, so it's gonna be really filling. So I just wanna make sure these pieces are fairly small, like bite size. May as well use all of it. This is a little overkill on the size of salad I'm making right now, but that's all right. This one will make a good leftover. Okay, so there we have our kale. So now I'm just gonna see what she uses in the dressing. Okay, so for this tahini dressing, we're gonna stir in the oil first, which honestly, when it comes to tahini and peanut butter, just, oh man, drives me bonkers. Oh. Okay, into our tahini dressing, we are going to put some garlic, some tahini, of course, quite a bit of tahini, making a huge mess here. Little bit of lemon juice, little bit of maple syrup, olive oil, salt, mix it up. I've never made tahini dressing with maple syrup before. Oh my gosh, what a game changer. It's so good. So I did add a little bit of water to it so that it was runnier. So now we're gonna pour our dressing, all of it, onto our kale. Now that that's all covered well, we need to toast us some sesame seeds, and we're gonna cook up a little bit of orzo. So orzo is just little tiny kind of rice-shaped pasta. So we're gonna cook up some of that. We're just going to toast up just a few sesame seeds, maybe that many. So we're also going to cut up some avocado to go on top, but I'm gonna wait and do that until just before I serve it, just so that the avocado doesn't go brown. And then I just need to cook up the orzo and finish toasting the sesame seeds. So I'll be back with you when I'm done both those steps. Before we do that, I just realized I can finish putting together our beef stroganoff here. So I've just added a little bit of water and organic cornstarch to this, just to thicken everything up. And then I'm going to add, whoops, a bunch of sour cream. How? Oh, I just cut my finger on this part here because I ran my finger around to pull the lid off. So I'm gonna add a good 2 cups of sour cream. Okay, let's give it a taste. Absolutely delicious, tastes like my childhood. I am running out of space. Okay, I really need to stop and clean this kitchen. I'll be back with you in a few. So now I'm gonna chop up these avocados. I'll show you our chunks of sweet potato there. And I just pulled the shepherd's pie out of the oven and it's bubbling away and smells absolutely scrumptious. So now we're gonna do some avocado. This is very awkward to do with my bandage on my thumb here. But these avocado are just perfectly ripe for this purpose. So what we're gonna do with this avocado is cut it into bite-sized pieces and toss it into our salad. The way that Tegan does it is she just lays everything, so she has the sweet potato kind of laid on there looking beautiful and the avocado and all of that. But the reality is that's not really practical for my family, so I'm going to chop everything up into smaller bite-sized pieces. I am going to put it all on the top though, rather than mixing it all together though, just so that everyone can make sure that they get some of all of the different toppings we're going to have on here. So we're just going to spread the avocado around. We are going to sprinkle some of our pomegranate on there. How beautiful. Oh my goodness. That is just gorgeous. And cut our chunks of sweet potato on. So these ones I think are technically yams, because aren't the sweet potatoes the orange ones and the white ones are yams? Either way, this is going to be just fine and just delicious. I feel like that is probably enough on there. I have the extra ones here, but that's no problem. Now we have our orzo here cooked, and I'm gonna put some orzo on the top. So I just put a little bit of olive oil in here just so that it wouldn't stick. The red of the pomegranate's kind of buried underneath the orzo there. And I have some toasted sesame seeds here. This is just beautiful and looks super filling. Okay, and we have our shepherd's pie here, which smells so good. Okay, let me just move this and scoop up a little bit so that I can show you what this all looks like when it's plated up. Put a little bit of the tomato sauce on the top. Oh my gosh, that smells so good. So we'll take a scoop of our kale salad here. Doesn't that look delicious? I want to try the salad first. Best salad I've ever had. No joke. Oh my word. Truly, friends, that is the most delicious salad. And I'm not even a huge fan of sesame seeds, but the combination of all of those flavors, there's like a bit of sweet, salty, savory, a little bit of crunch. So good. So now let's try the shepherd's pie, which I already know is good, of course. It's my grandma's recipe. All of this is absolutely delicious. I highly recommend all of these recipes. The beef stroganoff, the roasted, what did she call this? Roasted sweet potato kale salad with tahini dressing, and my grandma's shepherd's pie. The combination of all of these things are so good. And you know what? I just completely forgot that I also made the delicious pulled pork over here as well. So all of this food I am absolutely thrilled with. Every single one of these recipes is absolutely delicious. So the stroganoff will go in the freezer. Like I said, I'll make pasta and a veggie side for dinner later on this week. The salad we'll eat with the shepherd's pie for dinner tonight, although I can tell that there probably will be quite a bit left over that we can also use for lunch tomorrow. And then we have the pulled pork, which I will freeze and bring out for dinner later on this week. I'll make a batch of buns to go with it and probably a green salad or something like that on the side. So this shepherd's pie, I highly recommend that you give it a try. It is very different than any kind of shepherd's pie you've probably had before. With the capers in it and the olives, there's that salty flavor to it, which I really love. And then with the tomato sauce on top, it's absolutely scrumptious. If you try any of these recipes, I would love to hear about it. You can leave a comment under any of my videos. We always check our comments, or you can tag me over on Instagram. And I just wanted to remind you that our mugs are going to be available for pre-order this week. We are doing a very limited run of these for our first run of them. So if you want to be notified when they go live, when that pre-sale goes live before anyone else hears about it, you can get on my email list, and there is a link for that down below. And then I will share with you, or if you just keep your eye out on my website, you'll be able to get on to do a pre-order once we make that go live on the website. All right, friends, I am going to take myself over to the table with this beautiful plate of food and very much enjoy it. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye.